This poor house behind me, locally this house is known as the Grimshawe House because Nathaniel Hawthorne, Salem's favorite son, uses this as a location for one of his stories called Dr. Grimshaw's Secret. It's actually a really old house. The origins of the house, the original parts of the house, go back to about 1680. Now, it's been renovated and changed a lot over the years, so I'm not sure how much of the original 1680 structure is left, but apparently the original parts of the building do go back to about 1680. So it's a very old house. Now, in the 19th century, this was the home of Dr. Nathaniel Peabody, a dentist. And I don't know about you, but few things frighten me more than the idea of 19th century dentistry. Dr. Peabody had several daughters. They're all really interesting. He had a daughter named Elizabeth, a daughter named Sophia, and a daughter named Mary. Now, Elizabeth Peabody is this kind of firebrand character. She wants to make a difference in the world. She throws herself into a lot of reformist movements back then. Crazy stuff. Things like abolition of slavery and votes for women and dress reform. She wants to get rid of corsets. Crazy stuff. But single women back then don't get very far without a husband to make them acceptable, palatable to polite society. So she quickly sets her sights on a rising star here in town, Nathaniel Hawthorne. But Elizabeth is this kind of firebrand character, and Hawthorne is very shy and very retiring. She is way too much for him, so the romance doesn't really get very far at all. Hawthorne, though, pretty quickly switches over to her sister Sophia. Sophia is much more his speed. She's also kind of shy and retiring, kind of an early goth. She gets weird headaches. She goes to a mesmerist to try to cure the headaches. This is much more Hawthorne's speed. At one point, during the courtship, he comes over here to visit Sophia. Elizabeth answers the door. Sophia's upstairs having a nap. Elizabeth runs upstairs, wakes up Sophia. Says, "Oh, Mr. Hawthorne's come to see you. He's handsomer than Lord Byron," she says. Sophia wakes up long enough to say, "He came once, he'll come again." She rolls over. She goes back to sleep. Nonetheless, they're made for each other. The romance plays out here. They eventually fall madly in love and get married. And it is, by all accounts, a really happy marriage. Happily ever after. They don't live here. They live a couple other places around town. Now, Hawthorne, he's got a wife. They've got some kids now. He's not making enough money from his writing to support a family. He needs a day job, steady source of income. He calls in some favors. He gets a job working at the custom house down at the Salem waterfront. This is the tail end of Salem's glory days as a port. But it's a political favor. New administration comes in. All the old favor jobs get thrown out. The old patronage jobs get swept out. So the new administration can give them to their patrons. Hawthorne loses his job. He goes dragging home to his wife. He says, "I've been fired. I don't know what we're going to do. We're screwed." And she says, "Oh, you can finally write your book." And he says, "No, you don't get it. We've got kids. We've got rent. We've got no money coming in. I don't know what we're going to do." Sophia goes over to her desk, opens up a drawer, takes out all the money she had put aside over the last couple of years. She'd been putting a little bit of money aside from his paycheck every week. She was also a gifted artist herself. She had been painting watercolors and landscapes, selling her work on the side, socking the money away. She has saved up enough money for them to live for over a year. Hawthorne, I hope, kisses his wife on the forehead, goes into the next room and starts to write his book. Just about a year later, he brings out the Scarlet Letter. This is the book that makes his name. This is one of the masterpieces of the American Renaissance, one of the first American works to get people's attention in Europe, make the Europeans realize the Americans had some literary mojo, and he writes that book on the year his smart wife buys for him. Now, Elizabeth never gets married, but she goes on to have exactly the life that she wants. She goes on the lecture circuit. She gives talks about abolition of slavery and votes for women and dress reform. She opens a bookstore in Boston. She publishes a newspaper in Boston. Helped open the first kindergarten in America, which is a brand new idea at the time. So she gets to have exactly the life that she wants. The third daughter, Mary, she marries Horace Mann, who's an educational reformer, so she gets involved in the cause of education reform. So all the daughters in the family, they all go on to have these really interesting, exciting lives. There are sons in the family. They're so completely boring, I don't even know their names.